The views and opinions expressed on any program are those of the producers and/or the persons appearing on the program and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of FRC Media, Bristol Community College, or the City of Fall River.
Well, hello. Welcome to Spindle City Straight Talk. I'm Chip.
And I'm CJ.
And it is Friday in the Riv, the end of another great week in the city of Fall River.
But it was not eventful.
It was.
It wasn't eventful, was it?
It wasn't. Yeah, and actually there was a lockdown yesterday at Talbot.
That's right.
Lockdown at
No
Talbot.
event, no big event. There wasn't
No
a
big
event.
deal. No press conference for the mayor to assuage the fears.
It was
of
only a knife
people
and a gun.
After all this thing, well, it was but they didn't. It wasn't.
They
a knife.
determined it to be a BB gun.
A BB gun, but
and
it
they
was
found it at the kid's home.
at the kid's home.
Right.
But the knife was in the backpack.
That's right.
The knife was in the backpack. After the Uvalde issue, you'd think maybe the mayor, besides worried about parades and saying how wonderful the
And
Providence
movies. Don't forget movies.
Food truck festival, the movie night. We're gonna pay attention and act like a leader and say, look, we're gonna tell you what we're doing here. How many times have we talked about metal detectors? This is ridiculous. After this, we got people walking into schools with weapons.
Yeah.
You mean to tell me somebody hasn't figured out after all these mass murders? Forget about it, going all the way back to Columbine. For God's sakes, I don't care how inconvenient it is, secure these schools. Make them walk through metal detectors. They've been walking through metal detectors in New York City public schools for decades. I mean, this is just ridiculous. They found it. They found it. That's nice. But suppose they didn't find it.
Right.
And later on, a kid got into a fight and stabbed somebody or stabbed a teacher.
And I have an interesting idea. Real interesting idea.
Okay, I can't wait for this one. Go ahead.
How about we use the ARPA money to buy metal detectors for every school in the city?
Yeah, but
imagine that. Wouldn't that be interesting?
Yeah, but remember, he's not using it for the budget anymore, so he's got a ton of it.
Ah, no, I got to vote. I got something to say on that.
Oh, I know you do.
I got something to say on that.
But like, as you said, using opera money for actually something that will help?
Yeah.
Well, why would we do that?
I know.
Please. That's almost as bad as expecting the mayor who ran on a platform of, I'm not this crook, I'm going to be an honest guy, violating the law and paying people in excess of an ordinance.
That's right.
You know, that's illegal. I hate to say it, but I am going to say it at the next council meeting. Hopefully, I'll be up at the Cape at a retirement board seminar, Macris. I'm going to try to get back for Tuesday and run back down here. But they will get a letter from me basically stating that, you know, we're tired of it. I'm tired of this city and its elected officials who all stood up. And by the way, I will include in that a link to the council meeting last year's budget when the Corporation Council was asked if it was legal or not, and he didn't answer, which by the way, he has a obligation to answer because he has a ethical and legal obligation as a city employee, because I gave that in a letter in my hearing where all employees, et cetera, have the same obligation, fiduciary and ethically. He didn't answer, but supposedly he then told Councilor Dion that it's not legal. And then at the last meeting, Councilor Dion reminded everybody of that conversation, and he was sitting there, and he didn't say it didn't happen and that it was legal. She was wrong. When the city administrator, who again is violating the law and his fiduciary duty by allowing these payments to go forward, as is the accounting, everybody involved in those pays is violating the law. So, you know, we go back to, you know, the violations of law in the health care, the violations of law we see all the time. And I'm digging through my attic looking for that article from a decade ago when the federal judge in Boston said, I'm sick and tired of seeing Fall River up here in my courtroom because they never follow the law. Never. So here's a guy that ran on, I'm not a crook, I'm gonna be an honest man, violating the law. You're saying, well, I'm not stealing money, but you are. You're stealing my tax money. You're paying somebody more than an ordinance. So who are you paying it with? Are you paying? Listen, if you're paying out of your pocket, all these employees, show us, and I won't have a problem with it. But if you're paying them with city money, which is tax money, guess what? You're doing something illegal too.
Well, supposedly, he's paying a guy $20 a week to clean the streets between Webster Bank and the Academy building, Old 2nd Street, that little area, because he was complaining that it was dirty. So he says, well, if you clean it, I'll give you $20 a week. So the mayor is paying him $20 a week. Where's that coming from? His pocket? I hope so, because, and I think the unions might have something to say about that, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely. So if I go to the mayor and say, look, my street's crappy too, you're gonna give me some money, Paul?
Yeah, exactly.
I'm not working for $20 though. That's even below minimum wage because it takes. You gotta come on, let's go. I mean, all these things are illegal. You can't just make deals. There's a process.
Right.
There's a process that everybody else has to follow except our politicians. Isn't it amazing that when I had to negotiate a contract, sometimes it went 2 years. And even then, sometimes after 2 years, 2.5 years, we had to go to the JLMC and spend another year in arbitration and then get an award. And we got an award, and you're going to hear this at the council, so I'm giving you a preview of coming attractions. And you councilors, if you're watching, maybe I can stay within my 3 minutes. And when I came back, and I went to the JLMC twice, and the first thing you have to do is prove ability to pay, which I did, and we won every element in both cases. In both times, we went to the JLMC. The law says they had to go to the JLMC. The mayor is obligated to present it to the council, but the council doesn't have to fund it. If the council would have said no to those 2 awards, it would have been back to the table, and that happened in Attleboro.
Attleboro, correct.
It happened in Attleboro years ago. They got an award after 3 or 4 years without a contract. They went in front of the council. The council said, no, we don't have the money. It's too much. We don't want it. But back to the table. Took them 6 years to get a contract. And so, you know what the moral of that story is, Paul? And I know you're watching, or one of your minions is, that everybody else has to follow that process. You negotiate a contract, and then it has to be funded, not by you, by the city council, who is the Ways and Means, the funding arm, the legislative body. As a matter of fact, in my venue, which is 150E, it says it, and I'll tell you, Chapter 150E, Section 7. Read it. I had to go back, and it says the city has to present that contract and how it's funded to be approved by the city council. The council approves all the expenditures. And when a city council approves a budget with expenditures that violate an ordinance, which by law are permanent regulations and can't be changed unless they're changed physically to reflect the new number, they are all violating the law. They are all violating the law. So, don't be throwing, you know the old saying, people in glass houses shouldn't throw stones. Maybe you shouldn't have ran on the thing that I'm honest and he's not, because guess what? What you're doing isn't honest. You took money from the taxpayers. You misappropriated taxpayer money. You took my money and I want it back. And that's what I'm going to tell the council. I want everybody in the city of Fall River who pays taxes, I want a full accounting of how much money was paid outside the ordinance by every employee who wasn't entitled to it. And I want that credited to my tax bill.
Yeah, why not? Works for me.
Because you spent my money without the city council's permission and thereby my permission, in violation of an ordinance, because the city council doesn't even have the jurisdiction to give you the permission to spend money. They have to change the ordinance.
That's right.
So, you know, let's stop the manure. Let's stop this horse manure. I'm tired of this city, and the first letter I sent you, when I did my presentation and my cover letter, I cited all the times you violated Chapter 32B, Sections 3A and 8A, by not putting money directly into the employee trust fund, by not finding this in the annual audit that's mandated by those laws. This has gone on for decades, and I will remind the city council again when I'm there about the time CJ and I were sitting in the council and we saw a department head go up there and say, yeah, you're right, I forged an overtime sheet.
Yeah.
And I charged it to the school department.
That's right.
And that overtime was not in the school department. And what did they do to him? Not even this. Shut up, go sit in the audience, keep your head down, it'll all blow over. Don't worry about it. You still got a job, and you'll get a pay raise. For violating the law, for fraud, for creating a fraudulent document. Fraud, still working at more money than when that happened. And I'm tired of it. The people are tired of it. The citizens of the city are tired of you ignoring the law and having no regard for them. You just, who the hell are they? The peons. Remember, this is a government of men, not kings. You're not a king. You're not the superintendent of schools. You're the mayor, and you have a fiduciary obligation and a legal obligation. You swore an oath to uphold the laws of the United States, of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, and of the city of Fall River when you were sworn into office. I'm not asking you to do something that's out of the ordinary. I'm asking you to obey your oath. That's all I'm doing. Do what you're supposed to do. You cannot take my money and misappropriate it. Because they are going to, I'm tired of it. I'm tired of this council just saying, oh, well, I'm not going to get an answer, so let's just move on.
Yep.
No, if you don't get an answer, when you say, is this legal or not, and a corporation council ignores you, strike everything. Strike everything that's got to do with that question out of the budget and strike the budget of the law department.
Right.
Until they give you a damn answer.
That's it. That works. Now, in response to the pay raises,
Yes.
Marc Dion had Paul on his show.
Yeah.
And Mark said, seems like pay raises in Fall River gets people in an uproar. He said, well, I'm going to tell you now. I negotiated contracts, and the police department, the fire department, all the unions got raises. Nobody said anything about that. Yeah, because they're 1 or 2%. They're not 16,000.
No, whoa. No, that's absolutely, again, Paul's not good at numbers, and he's not good at reality. Mm-hmm. That's why I'm going there. The police department, the fire department, and every other union worker is negotiated at 150E. And 150E, nobody gets a dime until the city council approves the funding.
That's right.
That's the difference. Paul is full of crap again, lying his butt off, and stupid, because he doesn't know anything. He worked and collected his paycheck for 30 years. He's collecting a paycheck now, and he doesn't give a damn about how he gets paid. He's running the city, and he doesn't care about health care regulations, or health care laws, or that. When I negotiated a contract, and that contract got signed, we had to wait sometimes months before we saw that in our paycheck. and we couldn't get it in a paycheck because what I just said earlier, Chapter 150E, Section 7. Every single dime in that contract could not be paid until the city council appropriated it. Mary Sahadi went before the city council for the police contract, the fire contract, and every other contract. You are so full of crap. I think your eyes are blue, but you must be wearing contacts because they should be brown, because that's how high the crap is piled up in you. Apples and oranges again. Incompetent, clueless mayor. To go on air and say that shows how actually ignorant you are of the process. Nobody said anything about it. When I went after 4 years to the JLMC and we got an award, we had to wait for the city council to appropriate the money, and we could only get the money for that fiscal year. We had to wait additional time for them to take special action to give us any retroactive, because it was from a previous year where the books were closed. This is what you're saying to people? This is what you're saying to people? You're a flat-out idiot.
Well, he had to justify the pay raises somehow.
Yeah, by mixing apples and oranges.
Exactly. But wait, it gets
you know
even
why?
better.
Wait a minute. Okay, go ahead.
It gets even better. The mayor said that ARPA money is not part of this budget. He insisted it wasn't part of this budget. Then
I see the paper. I got that too.
Out of the other side of his face, he turns around and he says, but, he did say but, he says, but ARPA money assisted with the debt exclusion. And I'm going to tell you what the debt exclusion is. Now, for a single-family home, valued at $271,400, the debt exclusion payment would be $133. But because of the 50% reduction, it's going to be $65. I'm assuming this is annually. A two-family home, valued at $289,000, is $142, or $69 a year. I'm assuming again a year. Three-family is $340,350, $167, or $82 a year. Then from three-family it goes to commercial. Commercial, $297,700, $310, or $158. I don't know who does 50% marketing at $158 of $310. Industrial is $545,200. The cost would be $567 for a reduced to 50% of the Durfee debt payment of $259. Now, there's a great little disclaimer at the bottom of this thing. It says, oh God, I can't read it now, it's so small. That's how small of a disclaimer it is. It's that tiny, it's that tiny. Basically, it says that these numbers are for discussion purposes only.
Yeah.
How do you form a budget with discussion purposes only?
Discussion numbers. Yeah,
Discussion
that means
numbers.
they're only there just to say we got a number.
Yep.
They're not accurate because a city budget, according to them, doesn't have to be accurate. It's only our money.
Well, I called the assessor's office.
Yeah.
Try to get some clarification on this. And I got transferred to an assessor that was in the office who said, I have no idea. I asked, when did the city decide that they were going to charge based upon property value? That's not what we were told. And then it was clarified to me that it was presented that way in the initial presentation to the city council. Not to the people when they were in, Paul didn't present that to the people when he was in the schools, in the neighborhood meetings. He didn't present it there, but it was presented in the initial presentation that it was going to be based upon the property value.
Yep.
Now here's the thing. If it's based upon property value, doesn't that mean that the debt will be paid off sooner?
Absolutely.
I would think so, because a bond is paid off with fixed payments.
But only if we haven't audited that thing every year, because you can't trust them.
That's right. You can't trust the people of the politicians of Fall River. The people of Fall River can't trust them, and for some reason or another, you morons decided that Paul was the guy. Well, maybe Paul was the guy because he was the better of two evils the first time around.
Yeah,
the second time around, I don't know.
Well, one thing about it, he is a good good politician because he can
shovel it.
he can shovel it. But let me get back to Paulie again because Paulie doesn't link. Go up and look up 150E. Go talk to your corporate. You'll ignore him anyway because he told you it's not legal to pay people outside the ordinance, which makes what you said irrelevant. Nobody made an issue. Nobody paid the fire department, the police department, DCM, the clerks, anybody illegally. Nobody. If you go and look at the public record, you can see their salaries. Their contracts are public record. All the collective, they're under a completely different law, you dip. You bonehead. I can't believe the lack of knowledge of fundamental process. And this guy is a mayor. I'm going to read you again one of our favorites, the Constitution. So you swore the whole of Commonwealth of Massachusetts Constitution. And this is as germane as part of the first Article 5, which says you are accountable to us, which you seem not to appreciate. Well, what are they making a big deal out of it for? Because it is a big deal. You violated the law that you swore to uphold. That's why we're making a big deal out of it. The police department went to a bargaining table as per the law, settled the contract, got it signed, and he still didn't start getting paid until Mary Sahadi went up there and went over the funding for that contract. Because that law mandates that entire contract has to be funded and approved by the city council. That's what it does. So now we're back to part of the first, Article 7.
Ooh,
another one of my
another
one of my favorites. Government is instituted for the common good, for the protection, safety, and prosperity and happiness of the people, and not for the profit, honor, or private interest of any one man, family, or class of men. That means your friends. You can't do what you did. It's prohibited by the Constitution. You got to work for all the people.
That means the developers.
Therefore, the people alone have an incontestable, unalienable, and indefeasible right to institute government and to reform, alter, or totally change the same when their protection, safety, and prosperity and happiness require it. Well, Mr. Mayor, our prosperity is jeopardized with the way you do throw things out, ignoring the law. So here's another constitutional article that you're violating. So listen, there's an old adage. If you're an idiot, keep your mouth shut. Because if you open it and start talking, you're going to remove all doubt for anybody who is in doubt. Stop talking about the city like it's the school department and you can do anything you want because nobody can ask you because you're autonomous. There's laws. There's a process. The contracts you negotiated with these people do not come under 150E. They're individual contracts. But the process of how all expenditures for any contract or anything in the city of Fall River does not change. It has to be approved by the city council, not by you. And if there's an ordinance that regulates the amount, as the law says, that regulation is permanent. It seems that you don't take the time to learn your job. Look, if you went there in your first year and said, well, let me go talk to somebody who actually knows something about collective bargaining and laws that are applicable, you just said, the hell with it, I'm going to do what I wanted, like they do in a school department. We're going to do whatever the hell we want. And you did. So go on Dion's show. I'll go on Dion's show, and I'll show them all the damn laws. You know, this is ridiculous. This is a slap in the face to the taxpayers to do this, to have a total disregard for your duties. Oh, I'm going to be a full-time mayor. I ran into a guy the other day. He ran into him and said, "Oh, I did a lot today. I went down and I shook a lot of hands and I said hello to a lot of people." It's not your job. Your job is to run a city and run it as it says in our Constitution, for our happiness and our prosperity. You can't violate the law, Paul. I'm sorry. And you can't justify it by mixing apples and oranges. You didn't even know. How can you be so clueless? How can anybody be that clueless? When you were a substitute teacher, you worked under a different set of rules. When you were a vice principal, you got a different paycheck, and you negotiated your contract. That's why they have an administrators union, they have a teachers union, they have janitors unions, and they all come under different laws. People who basically negotiate their contract individually are not under 150E. 150E is for collective bargaining units. But it doesn't change the fact that every expenditure that you negotiate is not binding until it's funded by the city council. And go ask the mayor of Attleboro about the mayor that was sitting in there when they tanked a firefighter's contract and they had to go back to the table. Because anything you say, and that's what we keep saying on this show to the council, you got all the power. Grow a set. When he comes in with something you don't like, don't fund it.
That's it.
Period. Okay. I mean, he really did this really well. You had to tell me what he said on Dion.
Yes, I did.
You know that was gonna.
I know how to light the firecrackers, okay?
When you start talking about all the damn pain and time I had to take, sometimes 3 years, 4 years to get a damn contract for 1 or 2%.
Right.
And then wait for months sometime to get paid, because we couldn't get paid until all the stuff with all the I's were dotted and T's were crossed.
Well, how many people in your union got a $4,000 pay raise in 1 year?
Nobody. Ever.
It was like 1 or 2%, right?
On a good day.
On a good day,
in the old days, we used to get a little bit more, but the bottom line is it's the process, CJ.
Right.
You know that. You have to follow the law. You have to follow the process. And then this buffoon gets on the radio and he just babbles. He has no idea. It's like, did anybody tell him, look, dummy, if you're going to go on there and talk about it, at least educate yourself.
Well, you know, the sad part about it is $4,000 pay raises to people on the inner circle of the mayor. The people working directly in the mayor's office.
That sounds like a direct violation of Article 7, part of the first.
And those two people, and I have no problem saying who they are, is Ann O'Neill Souza and Alina Pavidi, because the mayor felt they deserved $4,000 more a year. Okay? This was just like the time when they turned around and said that people on the contract get an annual cost of living increase. I was like,
yeah,
I don't get an annual cost of living increase. You never got an annual cost of living increase. Nope. You got a percentage, and that was it. The cost of living could have gone up way beyond that. Like right now, is everyone going to get a cost of living increase equal to the amount of inflation?
Yeah.
I don't think so.
8.6 this morning. But just quickly before you wrap it up, I don't care. You know, that's not the problem.
No, it's not.
If they deserved $4,000 pay raises, that's fine. If the mayor believed that, that's okay.
That's right.
That's okay. But you don't get to give it to them.
That's right.
The council has to give it to them.
You
have to follow the law and the process. You are not exempt from that, dimwit.
Especially when the ordinance says not to exceed.
That's right.
And that's exactly what it says, not to exceed. But, you know, this is Fall River. The law is an inconvenience. So what do we do with it?
Wait a minute. He's Judge Dredd Jr. He is the law.
He is the law. That's it. He is the law. Well, everyone, I want to thank you for watching. We've had a great week with you. And please remember, stay safe, stay angry, and hold your politicians accountable. Have a great weekend. We'll see you on Monday.